When you return home, remember what I've talked about. Let's make a place in fandom. There are people out there who are discovering fantasy for the first time because they're picking up ACOTAR or Fourth Wing, right? And that's awesome. Like, the fact that those books are selling so much and are fantasy novels is so cool, right? There are people out there who love Twilight but have never tried another fantasy book until recently. Let's make a place for them, right? Let's not be the kinds of people who make you prove that you belong by asking them a list of Cosmere questions about the nature of identity and connection. My sister Jane has a story about this. If you haven't seen Jane, she's at the Lies Weaver booth. Let's just say, I am not known for my keen fashion sense. Anytime I'm wearing something that is not what a Luddite would wear, it's because someone else helped me, right? Jane was a personal fashion person at Nordstrom's. Her job was the high-end customers who came in. She helped them because she was so good with fashion. She went to one of my signings once, and somebody said to her, you look like you're in the wrong place. And she's like, I'm his sister. Let's make sure we're not gatekeeping who gets to be a fan. That doesn't work anymore.
I can't even begin to express my appreciation and how important it is that Brandon decided to speak up about this, because he owes a lot to Book Talk right now. Mistborn: The Final Empire just made it to a bestseller list for the first time ever. That book has never made it to a bestseller list. His own fans, his own fan base, never made Mistborn: The Final Empire a bestseller. And yet it is on a bestseller list now because of Book Talk. And what makes up Book Talk? Mostly romance and romantasy readers. Not completely. Obviously, this is a Cosmere page, and Cosmere is not romantasy. We know that there's a fan base here for other genres, but the majority of Book Talk is romance and romantasy readers. And we get made fun of. We get told that we're not real readers. We get told that we don't have any value in the reader space. And yet here we are with arguably the largest author writing fantasy today, the most popular fantasy author in the world right now, saying that nobody needs to gatekeep us out of the fandom, and nobody needs to say that we have to qualify to be fans and readers. And some of you may not recognize how important this is, but those of us who have been fantasy readers and fantasy nerds and just nerds in general for our whole lives and are feminine presenting are used to being told that we don't deserve to be in spaces, that we have to prove our value and our worth in these spaces, while those that are male presenting have never had to do that and get automatic respect. Where's the automatic respect for women when we're the ones who can put your books on the bestseller list? It's not just in the Cosmere. I'm not picking on the Cosmere particularly. It is Star Wars fandom, Star Trek fandom, gamers, Lord of the Rings, and it's not just women who are ostracized. It is minority groups of all kinds, because the elves in the Lord of the Rings are not allowed to be black. That Star Wars, you have to prove that you actually have knowledge. You'll be asked to name so-and-so's master that was mentioned one time in a comic book that most people haven't read. The constant need for people to be validated, to be welcome in the spaces when they're part of a minority group is absolutely wild. So once again, Brandon is out here saying that we deserve respect because we are important to this fandom, not only because we exist and we deserve to be respected simply for existing, which is true and which is part of what he's saying, but also because we are important to this fandom, and his books would not be selling as well as they are right now if it was not for Book Talk and romantasy readers specifically. Brandon is an advocate for the LGBTQ community. He is an anti-racist advocate. He is an advocate for women. He is an advocate who is here for minority groups, and he represents them in a positive light in his books. He hasn't always. He has had growing to do in many areas, but he puts in the work and he advocates and he hires people who can help him to properly advocate for these spaces. And here he is a group that it doesn't even, we're not technically a minority group, but women are the least respected of the readers, and romance is looked at as if it doesn't have value in reader spaces because it is primarily read by women. And on the flip side, here is one of the biggest authors in the world talking about how much value we have. This is important. This is important, and it needs to be talked about, especially because the Brads and Chads are out here trying to say how ridiculous it is that he mentioned that and how he's wrong and that we don't deserve automatic access to the fandom. But guess what? Anybody does. Anybody deserves automatic access to the fandom. If I want to say that I'm a fan of something and I enjoy it, then bam, I'm in. That's all that it takes, is the enjoyment of something. You don't have to pre-qualify as a fan of anything. And I'm in a lot of fandom circles that do try to say, well, oh, you're not a real fan if you can't blah, 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 blah. There's no such thing. If I enjoy something, I'm a fan. And that is exactly what Brandon was advocating for with his speech about romantasy as he dropped his best-selling book yet, his biggest and most anticipated book, as he was at the convention that he made to run for his own books, and he had tens of thousands of people watching him. He sat here and he advocated for romantasy because the fans of that genre are important and we matter. And I love this man.